Hello, welcome to Best of the Best, Playing with Power series where we rate top cards, decks, sets, and much more from a CEDH perspective. Today we are going to talk about the new set for MTG called Zendikar Rising. The Zendikar plane has always been many players' favorite plane from a card, mechanic, and lore perspective. The original Zendikar block definitely set the bar from a power standpoint. We still use many of the cards from that original set in CEDH decks to this day. The second visit to the plane with Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch was, let's face it, a massive letdown from many perspectives. So, now we are back to Zendikar with the new set Zendikar Rising. So how did the set do? Well, in today's video we're going to take a look at the top 5 CEDH cards for Zendikar Rising and see whether or not it was a success or a failure for our favorite format, CEDH. So, let's dive right in. Number 5 on our list is Yasharn, Implacable Earth. Yasharn is 2 green and a white for a 4/4 legendary elemental boar. Yasharn reads, when Yasharn Implacable Earth enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest and a basic plains card, reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Its second ability reads, players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. So why is this card good? The first ability is okay, guaranteeing 2 more land drops over the next 2 turns and getting around any potential Blood Moon effects by grabbing basics. Its second ability is where it really shines. Turning off the ability to have people sacrificing permanents and paying life is huge in CEDH. Cards like Eldritch Evolution and Neoform can no longer grab those key creatures from a player's deck like they wanted. Furthermore, Force of Will is no longer to be able to cast for free, Razaketh is just an expensive flyer, and Necropotence is straight up dead. The amount of cards that this thing shuts off is actually quite large from a CEDH card pool perspective, as CEDH wants to cheat mana costs all the time. And don't forget, this card straight up shuts off fetch lands. I will say that again. Since a fetch land requires you to pay life to activate its ability, you can't use them. What we would have liked to have seen is the removal of that non-land clause in the second ability, as well as the ability to grab any plains or forests, such as Duels and Shocks. This deck will go well in your run-of-the-mill stack decks, with its best home belonging in Blood Pod. Next on our list at number 4 is Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. This card is 3 and 2 green for a legendary elemental that reads, Ashaya, Soul of the Wild's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control, and non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. First off, there are a lot of lines that you can take with this card. Since all of your creatures are now lands, there are a lot of synergies you can do with untapping lands and using creatures to untap lands. Since Ashaya makes them one and the same, there is a ton of combo potential. The main enablers for this deck are creatures that untap lands. This includes cards like Argothian Elder, Hope Tender, and Ley Weaver. Furthermore, anything that lets you untap a creature that can tap for more than 2 is also an enabler. Quirion Ranger and Scrib Ranger can now return themselves, eliminating things that force you to return it, like Temur Sabertooth. There are so many infinite mana combos that come from this card that an inevitable CEDH mono-green deck with this elemental at the helm is just on the horizon. This card will do best in the command zone, but could also find homes in current mono-green CEDH decks as well. Coming in at number 3 on our list is Thieving Skydiver. This card is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Rogue that has Kicker X, and the kicker can't be 0. The creature has flying and reads, when Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to Thieving Skydiver. Basically, this card can be a massive tempo swing against CEDH decks. Basically, with few exceptions, every single CEDH deck runs what we call the Power 4. This is Sol Ring, Mana Crypt, Chrome Mox, and Mox Diamond. It's pretty rare that you don't see a CEDH game without one of these on the board the first 1 to 3 turns of the game. This means that if you kick this for even 1, you can ramp yourself while removing someone else's ramp. This is a big tempo swing for only 3, and you get a 2/1 flyer after the fact as well. It can attack for Tymna, block other Tymnas, connect for Edric, and many more as well. This card will have homes in more mid-range or control decks, but could also end up in a few proactive decks looking to steal and ramp into their own bigger spells. Next up at our number 2 on the list is Lithoform Engine. This card is 4 for a legendary artifact that reads, 2 and tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. 3 and tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. And 4 and tap, copy target permanent spell you control. That copy becomes a token. So where do we even start with this card? Want more treasures from Dockside? Want more counter magic protection? Want more value from just about every single card you play? The potential of this card is absolutely through the roof. And the fact that it is all activated abilities is what makes this card even better. Someone going to counter your Thassa's Oracle? Just create a copy of it on the stack. Someone going to counter your spell? Copy your own spell. It's crazy the things that we do on the stack, and the added effects of this card is absolutely bonkers. There is too much to go in for one video, but just to give you a taste, this is another card that goes infinite with Dramatic Reversal. You don't need to imprint and lose Reversal now if someone blows up your Isochron Scepter. You can simply have an additional ISO Rev line. Well, Litho Rev line if we're being technical. This card can find homes in pretty much any type of deck. Proactive for combo, adaptive for value, and disruptive for control. Finally, our number one pick for the top cards for Zendikar Rising is Archon of Emeria. This card is 2 and a white for a 2/3 flying Archon. It reads, each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. For reference, Rule of Law costs only 3 and only lets players cast one spell per turn. Thalia Heretic Athar is also 3 and makes your opponent's non-basic lands enter tapped as well. And this is also a 2/3 flyer. That is a lot of value that's strapped onto one creature, and for only 3. There just isn't too much to talk about because it's right there on the card. A 2/3 flyer that has 2 stacks effects that would normally take up a total of 3 spots in your deck is now condensed into one card. This is an amazing card simply because of its raw value. This will find homes in pretty much every single disruptive deck that plays white. It's such a good card that it would be hard not to have an argument for leaving it out. So that is our top 5 cards for Zendikar Rising. But how do we feel about the set overall? This is our 3rd visit to the plane of Zendikar. Did this give us the things that we wanted from a CEDH perspective? In our opinion, we would probably say no. Out of our 3 visits to the plane, this one definitely isn't as good as the original Zendikar, but is a marked improvement from Battle and Oath. It lies somewhere in the middle. We saw some cards that could be swaps in currently existing decks, but there were no commanders of note, no new strategies that could be built competitively, and no real shakeups to the format as a whole. That doesn't mean that this set was bad, it just means that other formats got more toys than CEDH did. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of Best of the Best. Tune in next time when we attempt to assemble the best lists for the best format, CEDH. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.